Hello, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. Welcome to the Obsidian Twitch channel. My name is Eric Dorbella. I'm the community manager here at Obsidian, and I am again seated next to Josh with Kaz down at the end, who is the lead artist on Pillars 2 Deadfire. We asked you guys to ask some questions about Deadfire on Twitter using the hashtag Deadfire, and we got a bunch of awesome questions coming in. So Josh and Kaz are going to go ahead and read through those questions. And then after that, we're going to open up questions to you guys in chat. So please be patient with us while we go through all these questions. And once, I guess say, all right, chat, go for it. You guys can go ahead and fire away with the questions. So let's just get to it. What's going on, Josh?
Not much. Do you want me to jump right into the questions, or do you want me to small talk?
You can small talk it up.
How many people we got right now?
Yeah, what?
So what we learn is
130.
Nice.
Yeah, is
Hello.
to not trust the numbers. That's
Okay.
what they say.
Okay.
Okay, so who knows how many people are there? We're working on the game. That's some new news. Not really. It's looking good. Somehow a cowboy got in the game. I still am not exactly clear on how that happened. Dimitri kind of gave some reasons. Still was kind of unclear. Miscommunication. But everyone likes it, so that's good. Speaking of that, here's a question, Kaz. Do you want to answer this one about fashion?
Fashion.
What will fashion in the Deadfire be like? What do people there wear, and what time period inspired the clothes?
Yeah, so I was talking about this one with Lindsay. So Lindsay Laney is also our one of our character concept artists. I think she's in the chat. Saw her earlier. Yeah, it's a whole blend of them. Based on our factions, we try to pull from various real world cultures. So some of those include a lot of Southeast Asian. We had some Thai inspirations, some Cambodia. A lot of those we also use for architecture as well. So a lot of Southeast Asia. We also have some Southeast Africa? No, East Africa.
Yeah, Eastern African fashions for the Principi. The Principi are the pirate faction, and they are formerly from Old Valia. And their fashions are, it's a blend of things, but a lot of it came from either India or from Eastern Africa. So there's a lot of cool, very colorful stuff that they wear.
And we got some Polynesian influences as well for the Huana natives. And then you got your the same Italian Renaissance for Valian stuff.
Yeah, we slightly revised the Valian stuff to contrast a little bit better with the Old Valian. And then for the Royal Deadfire Company, we looked at Ainu, I think, like Northern Japanese kind of stuff.
For Rautai or
For Rautai,
yeah. Yeah, there's some Asian flares in there.
Yeah. Are we leaving anybody out?
I think that covers it mostly.
That's about it.
Yep. What do we got?
Kaz, just had to tell you that your art is super amazing, buddy.
Thank you. Are all these gonna be like this? It's gonna be.
Yeah, that's it.
That's pretty cool. All right. Thank you.
Any chance we can get a sneak peek of the new weapon Lash VFX? Has the slaying weapon VFX been reworked? We do have. Where are you going, my man?
I gotta up your mic.
Okay. Look, he's fleeing. So the new weapon Lash effects look. Let me see if we can get like a GIF of that or something.
Yeah.
Maybe you can even swing down by John Lewis and get a little periscope or something of that.
Is he done with those?
Yeah, they're awesome. I was going to say.
With Slay?
I was going to swear. I don't know if he's done anything with slaying.
Yeah.
So the lash, the burning lash looks super sick because if you put the weapon away, if it's not out, it's not on fire, but the weapon is like glowing hot. So it's like an emissive glow, and then you pull it out and it's like Return of the King shit. The deleted Witch King of Angmar scene. This is my power.
We did gain some technically we can do a lot more with them too. I think base game we were limited to having bones that as emitters, but now we can do mesh-based
Yeah, we
emitters.
can do mesh emitters. That's way, it looks much better.
We can also do like a emissive on the shader itself, so we can have like you said, the hot glowing effect, that kind of thing. So.
It's really good. Can you elaborate a bit more on the changes to spell VFX that will make combat scenarios more readable?
So we're kind of going back and forth a little bit on that, but two approaches, I think. The first one is just from an asset creation standpoint. We learned a lot from the base game. John Lewis worked on Tyranny as well, and he learned a lot of lessons there. his VFX in Tyranny are actually a lot cleaner because of that. Because from the lessons learned on Pillars 2, Pillars 1, sorry. So Pillars 2 will naturally inherit all that knowledge and experience that we got. So for VFX, like the impulse, we kind of keep it very fast and make sure it kind of gets out of the way very quickly. And anything that lingers, we're trying to subdue it quite a bit, make sure it doesn't clash with the rest of the combat. But on the other side, we're actually taking like a screen space approach to maybe perhaps reducing the entire VFX contribution, and maybe bind it to a key or something like that, and sort of fade it out. So maybe when you hold tab, maybe the whole thing fades out, that kind of thing. So we're experimenting multiple approaches.
Yeah, sometimes there are, a lot of times there'll be a big spell effect that goes off and you'll pause, and right then the spell effect is filling the whole screen. So we're looking at doing something like when you hold tab in a combat, it will make all the combat visual effects fade out so you can see what the heck is going on. Do we call Kaz Aruga in the office? Aruga? Sometimes.
Yeah,
and Kaz,
when Josh is being goofy.
Yeah, when I'm being goofy. And I think that Mitch actually drew a picture of me yelling, Karuga.
And I'm in the corner like blushing or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
Who knows what Mitch is doing. Kaz, what is it that you like drawing the best? Items? Characters? Which items, characters, and why?
Dragons. I like drawing dragons. No,
Have you even had a chance to draw a dragon on this project?
I did for like script interaction, I think.
Okay.
The Langrath and what's the other dragon? Emerge. There was like a dragon Emerge in PX2.
The white dragon? No,
Yeah.
not the white
I
dragon.
also drew the bestiary for those. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The portraits are great. I love doing portraits. Icewind Dale portraits were a big inspiration for me. So just the moody, love the color palette. Vance Korbacks and Justin Swede, all those guys, huge inspiration for me. So being able to, follow in their footsteps, it's like just that alone is great. Script interactions as well are great. The little choose your own adventure moments. The limiting style, the sort of limitation that style imposes on us is actually and it poses an interesting challenge for me. So, and I just like the texture that it gives and just the vibes. It's very old school vibes. I dig doing those.
Yeah. Will Deadfire use lore to identify items? More cursed items in Deadfire? No, we're not going to use lore to identify things. Cursed items, more things that are like the Gray Sleeper, where there's sort of like a trade-off or a thing that you kind of have to progress through. Built-in trade-offs I think are good. I think the sort of things where it's like you pick up a thing and you're screwed and then you just have to reload and not do that. No, we're not going to do stuff like that. But things more like the Gray Sleeper we're probably going to do. So yeah. Will it be more fun to play gun-wielding characters? Pillars of Eternity, many of the fights were over before I could shoot twice. Good news, you can shoot twice right away now because you can dual-wield pistols. Oh. So there's that.
And we got a cowboy hat now, so.
And apparently you got a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
So also we're going to look more at like speeding up reload process, because reload was one of the very few things that, other than like one chant and a few other things, like it was very rarely affected by anything, so it didn't speed up very much. So yes, we're trying to make that more fun. I enjoyed party banter of IE style games with dialogue windows, often missed banter in Pillars of Eternity with dialogue barks. I think, so is the question there if we're going to have the banter show up in the dialogue log? That is a good question. I don't know the answer to it, but I can try to follow up on that. Can you describe the art department, how big the team, and what sort of roles?
Specialist roles?
Yeah.
Okay. So our concept team is now 3 people, myself included, and that's a huge gain from base game. We have Paulina on the base game and me, myself. So I mostly do the lead stuff, so I kind of manage a lot of artists, but Matt Hansen and Lindsay are sort of like, they're doing all the groundwork and they're doing an amazing job. And we also have about 6, it's kind of always in flux, but like the environment artists, we have, let's see, like about 6, is that right? Maybe
Environment artists, yeah. There's Rachel and Gus too.
Mm-hmm. So they're hard at work cranking out those beautiful environments. We got John Lewis and James Mullally. They're both VFX artists, and they they're sort of the cherry on top. They come at the end of the pipeline and give us all the bells and whistles and spice up the environments and all the spell effects. And we got the animators, Seth.
Seth, Nina, and Sean? No, Sean is no longer. Yeah, he's moved on.
Oh, Zach.
And Zach.
That's right.
Zach's Warlock. Yep.
I should know this by heart, by the way. So yeah, it's not a huge team, but it's definitely, the team feels like a luxury car compared to base game. Let me tell you.
Base game, we're stretched pretty thin.
Yeah.
Where do you get inspiration to create such a variety of spells and magic? I guess I'm wondering if that's more of a system design question. One, I steal things from every role-playing game I've ever played. So D&D, like any D&D game I've ever played, any D&D-like game I've ever played, Ars Magica, anything. Like I just, first thing is just rip something off if it feels thematically appropriate. Then after I'm done ripping a bunch of stuff off, then I think about things that would be thematically cool and different for the character, where it just allows them to fulfill some sort of a neat fantasy for the character, and then just build off of that. So steal as much stuff as possible. Will all maps with a shore have a space for our ship to dock in Deadfire? How often will we use a rowing boat? So,
Question.
Yes. So you can't just stop your boat anywhere on a world map. You can stop it, but you can't disembark. There are specific spots where you can disembark, and then you turn into a little dude token that runs around on the map, and then you can get back onto your ship. But those are specific locations where you disembark. Also, there will be some places where, technically speaking, you don't take your ship right into the map. You'll actually take a rowboat, and that's how you'll get in and get out. But it's kind of implied that you're going from your ship to the scene and then back again. We don't have like a rowboat minigame or anything like that. What are some design goals for ship crew? Will the crew consist of NPCs we find and hire in Deadfire, or will they be generated? Bobby Null is designing the crew system right now. We don't want to make a bunch of additional, we want to use a lot of the characters that are already being built for the game as crew members. We don't want to just generate a bunch of additional characters when it seems like, hey, one of the complaints that we saw pretty regularly for the Stronghold is that it seemed weird in the Stronghold that you had these hirelings to defend your Stronghold, but you also had companions that were somewhere that were not taking part.
Are those guys friends, or they never talk to each other?
No, I'm sorry, I can't. So trying to make sure that the companions are being used, including the companions that aren't currently in the party, using all those characters and sidekicks and things like that. First and foremost, because otherwise we're just making a bunch of, we're neglecting the characters that we're already putting a lot of work into to make more work for new characters that we have to make from scratch. But it's under design right now. Are you going for skeuomorphic or more modern, transparent UI in Deadfire? Transportation convo shot with little portraits look nice. Overall, it's still very skeuomorphic. The transparency thing is because we are not pausing dialogue. And so when you're in conversations, the world is not paused. And the skeuomorphic, the dialogue that we, interface that we had in Pillars, there are a few problems. One, it took up a huge amount of the screen, and so it was very hard to be immersed in what was going on.
It was pretty intrusive, yeah. And you see it all the time.
And you see it all the time.
Yeah.
And the second part was that it didn't do a really great job of breaking conversations down by who was speaking, line by line. So the new dialogue interface that we're working on, it's a little transparent. Obviously, we want things to be legible, but it allows you to sort of see more of the world as things are going on and people are moving around, so you remain a little more immersed in what's happening. And also it breaks things down line by line a little more clearly so that if you go back through what people have said, it's easier to see what each individual person has said line by line. So I think it makes the conversation just a little clearer, and it makes the world feel a little more, you feel more connected to the world instead of just you're pulled out looking at this dialogue interface.
So far, by far, though, we are leaning more on skeuomorphic, and we're being very selective in where we streamline this.
Yeah, we're reskinning it, and we're looking more at things we've looked a lot at Balinese wood carving.
Yeah.
We've looked at poem manuscripts that are sort of manuscripts assembled out of pieces of palm leaves, and things like that to give a slightly different aesthetic to the UI. But overall, it's still largely similar in overall feel. Mm-hmm. What is your greatest artistic inspiration?
Oh, I missed that one. That's a big one. Let's see. Ooh, it's gonna sound like a cop out, but nature. I think there's so much to be learned from just landscapes, and in my off time when I'm not working, I try to go to figure drawing and
Lindsay.
yeah, and what
And Lindsay.
and Lindsay. Oh yeah, of course, yeah, Lindsay. Yeah, just from the human figure, the form, or like just landscape painting. Yeah, just a lot to take away from it. There's just a lot of compositional things you can learn, a lot of color, just how you shade things. Yeah, it's kind of vague, but
There's a follow-up here. Wonder how they're going to balance a non-pause interface with hostiles walking around. We don't. Basically, if combat is about to start, then we do actually pause the game. So like if for some reason you start chatting with someone and then, a hostile ogre wanders over and it's about to start combat, the world will pause at that point. So then you complete the conversation, and when you're done, then combat can actually start. But we don't have the sort of Fallout 4 style thing where two people are chatting and a Deathclaw is running around in the background and then decapitates
that's the
somebody.
best though.
Yeah.
That's the best.
Have you considered keeping health and endurance and including the injury system too as planned, but the only way to replenish health in expert mode would be costly poultices unusable in combat? This would provide a systemic coin drain and ensure that even small battles could make an impact. No, we haven't considered that. We are going to see how the system works, like as we've revised it. If it doesn't feel compelling, then we'll look at revising it. Most of the real sting of that stuff is going to come in places like dungeons, and we've been spending a lot of time developing cities so far where there's less like need to really do a lot of resting. So as we're doing more dungeon environment testing and things like that, I think we're going to get a better sense of the system and how it's going to work. But Bobby and I both like the health and endurance system. We got a lot of resistance about how it worked, a lot of problems with the rest system overall, and we're trying different things to try to solve all the problems, but it's very hard because it's not an easy thing to solve. So we are going to be looking at more solutions as we're moving forward. We want to remain flexible when we're dealing with resting and long-term systemic drains and things like that. How do priest and druid spells availabilities interact with the multi-classing system? Well, you gain powers as you level up, and you only gain powers when you level up. You don't just retroactively get a bunch of stuff because you happen to have another class. So if you're not picking new priest or druid spells, you're not getting new priest or druid spells. That's pretty much how it works. So if you're alternating between your levels, you can pick things from each class. You can also choose to say like, hey, I'm advancing in rogue, but I don't always take powers from the rogue, from the Guile power set. And you're taking, like, if I'm a druid rogue and I take more druid spells, you can do that, but you don't just automatically get stuff. So that's a big change from Pillars 1, is that you don't just like get a bunch of free stuff because you're in.
Yeah, like gishing, you don't gish, right?
What do you mean?
Like there's some options in D&D where people allow you to gish, like not what like future gish meaning, but previous gish just mean like if you level up as a druid or in rogue, that you level up both classes simultaneously.
Yeah. So currently it's level by level, and you pick a power at each level as you take things. So yeah, you don't just automatically get a bunch of stuff. So if you want to focus more on the druid stuff, you can take more druid spells, but it's not like you get a bunch of stuff for free. How much input is being considered from people of the Southeast Asian cultures on which the Juana are based? Well, I mean, it's not like we're going out and polling like a bunch of Polynesian people. I mean, we didn't poll a bunch of Italian people when we were making the Alien Republics, or a bunch of Old English people when we were making Eddie or anything like that. But I mean, we look at a bunch of different sources when we're thinking about portrayal of languages, portrayal of clothing. We think about why are these materials used? Why, what are the sort of elements that stand out, and why are they important?
Yeah, we look at it from like a logical standpoint, but also we don't want to be too literal with these things either.
Yeah.
And we try to it's a launching point for us. So I look at it kind of a more abstract point of view. So I look at the pattern frequency and then like how the garments are sort of draped on the figure, like the cuts of the cloth, that sort of thing. But yeah, not too literal.
Yeah. Will portraits be more consistent? A lot of them were jarringly different in Pillars.
Uh-oh. Sorry. Yeah, it was a roller coaster, like I said, for base game. Sometimes we did, we had to allocate resources in different areas. Sounds like an excuse, but that's reality. This time around, we have a lot more bandwidth. So we will be, I don't know if we'll be revising. That's a tricky line to tread too as well, because like if you think about it, we're allowing players to reuse portraits. Portraits are already out there in the Pillars 1 pool. If we change that portrait for Pillars 2, like how does that feel? Like if suddenly my face changed, I don't know how that would feel as a player. So as much as I want to revise some of those from Pillars 1, that's kind of like I'm not sure where I stand on that one.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
It's hard because if people fell in love with that and then you change it,
Right.
like, even if it was different.
I want to respect the original sort of vision of that character as well.
Yeah.
We'll see.
One thing I should say is, so how many new portraits are we expecting to add?
Currently, I don't think we have too many budget. Well, certainly, we have the new companions that we're adding, and we have a ton of those watercolor style portraits that we're adding through Matt Hansen is the artist doing those for a lot of the quest NPCs. So those are huge. But I'm assuming this person's talking about the actual
Player portraits.
player portraits.
Yeah.
I don't think have we nailed down on a budget there? I'm not
Yeah, I don't
sure.
think we have a strict budget on that yet.
Yeah.
But all the returning companions have new portraits. Obviously, all the new companions have have their own portraits. And then I know that we have talked about a certain number, but I don't know what that number is. So I'm terrible.
Depends on how much PayPal account
Yeah,
we get.
there's a complete non-answer for you. What were art inspirations for clothing in the Deadfire region? I think we kind of
Sort
went
of
over
covered
that.
that, yeah.
Yeah. Will there be clothing shops in Deadfire? In Pillars 1, if you wanted a nice suit early on, you had to mug a backer character.
Is this Lindsay, this one?
No, we won't necessarily have dedicated clothing shops, but I think it's a good idea to have clothing in shops. Like if there's an armor, a place where you can buy armor, just having clothing be part of that. So that's a good idea. Like I hadn't thought of that, but that'd be really easy to do. We've seen unique idle animations for party members such as Adair and Aloth already. Will all full-fledged companions have these, and/or can we expect to see these occur among important NPCs as well? Yes, all companions will have those unique idle animations and fidgets. Important NPCs, I think it'll depend on exactly how much resource we have for that, and how important that NPC is.
We have a sassy idol that is extremely sassy. Actually, we need to dial back on the sass a little bit.
So yeah, well, you actually saw
The
it
hips
in
are coming
Adam's,
out like-
Yeah, when you saw it in Adam's at the end of the video where the stag, the wild,
Oh yeah.
the spirit shifted stag appears and gets all sassy.
I love the system though. It adds so much flavor.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Where recurring monster types are concerned, assuming that there are some, would you say the focus has been on refining established designs or adjusting them to better fit the different environments in which they are encountered? Mostly, I think we're adapting them. So, for example, if we have a creature that, like a wolf or something, making it look like it fits more into the Deadfire, we have to retexture everything anyway.
Yeah.
Because of our new materials and character art pipeline. So as we're doing that, a creature like a Delamgon or a wolf or any of those things, we retexture those things so that they fit in a little bit better. Are there more variations in NPC body types, or will they still share the same models? The body types, I think, are mostly the same.
Yeah.
But we do have a lot more outfits overall.
Do we do our children in? Do we?
Yeah, we have some kids.
We prototyped one rig and it looked pretty good. We just scaled the body down and scaled up the head bone, and it was pretty convincing. So children are in. I really want to get more heavy body types. That'd be cool, like a heavy, heavier merchant.
Yeah, Adam's dream is of having a fat merchant scratching his butt.
Yes, fat merchants.
Who are illustrating the player party and NPC portraits, and how are they assigned and approved?
Player portraits have been predominantly Lindsay, and the NPC portraits have been Matt Hansen. I've been sort of hands off on this one, more just art direction. And we may outsource stuff down the road. We're not sure.
Yeah. It's possible that when we get to doing additional player portraits, we may outsource some of those.
How they signed and approved? I approve it when it looks good.
Signed by Kaz and approved by Kaz. What were the inspirations and thought processes behind the watercolor look for the scripted interactions? So, there were a couple of things for that. So for the scripted interactions, well, for those portraits, the idea was, I said at a certain point, hey, doesn't it suck that in Pillars 1, we only had 2 portraits for important NPCs, being Theos and Ivara? And everyone said, yeah, but it takes 1,000,000 years to make a portrait to a high level of quality, so what are you going to do? So I said, well, what if we tried to do just something that was like pen and ink with a little bit of watercolor? Then I did a really crappy version of a dare. And I said, okay, I am incompetent. I'm not really a good artist, but this went pretty quickly. How about you have a real artist do it? And then Matt Hansen did it, and it went pretty fast, and it looked pretty good. And then we refined it a little bit because we wanted to make it fit a little bit better. And we established like, well, it takes, how long does it? It's not even that long. It's like half an hour or something like that. He whips through those portraits.
40 minutes.
Yeah. If we establish that those portraits are pretty small, the detail level is not super high, it adds a lot of flavor because then almost every quest NPC that we have in the game can have their own portrait. We think it really does add a lot.
It's huge for me as a visually oriented person. After a while, all these conversations, all these names, they're all foreign names as well. So it's really great to have that visual anchor for your mind to latch onto. It's like, oh yeah, that guy with the scar or that guy with the cool hair. So it's internally the team loves them. I hope you guys love them too.
Yeah, and they also helped once we realized we were using them in conversations. Because of the style of scripted interactions, the portraits felt like they fit better there than the painted portraits. So that's why when you go into the scripted interaction, every character has a watercolor, version of their portrait that is used there.
Someone wants to see your drawing, Josh. You should.
I'll post it.
Post it up later.
It's pretty poor. It was mostly just to say like, how quickly can I do something that is recognizably a dare and pretty simple with a little bit of color. And it was like half an hour, but not very good. And then Matt did it, and it was half an hour and very good.
yours is all photoreal, and you're like, oh, I did it in 3 minutes. No big deal.
Yeah, just in Matt. Well, I'll show you, but it basically looks like Matt's, but like a quarter as good.
Okay.
With the change in location, will we see a significant change in the color palette of the natural environments, buildings, and clothing people wear?
You bet. Yeah. A lot of.
I think you already see that in our videos.
Yeah, a lot of different biomes. Also, just the dynamic weather and just everything just moving and swaying in the wind. The environment's like it's leaps and bounds better. We have deserts. We have like all these jungle environments. We have swamps. So I'm pretty excited to visit all these different biomes.
Yep. John Singer Sargent was an influence on Pillars 1, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What visual artists are influencing Pillars?
In terms of the style has been established, so we're not going to stray too much from it. But
Picasso, Kuhn.
Yeah, Cubism. We are going for Cubism.
Man Ray.
Yeah. So inspiration-wise, there's some of that similar. What's the other inspiration we had early on? What's that school of artists that?
Oh, the Hudson River School.
Yeah,
that was for Pillars 1.
Right. But there's just other games that are more into sort of stylistic stuff these days as well. I used to be all more like Rembrandt-y and they're very like lighting heavy, volume, shaded stuff. But now I'm looking at what Banner Saga and those guys are doing, and they get beautiful 2D art that's really stylized. No, I'm not saying that's the direction we're taking it, but that's some of my recent inspirations.
Little even Earl.
Yeah, so good.
What challenges and peculiarities did you find designing art for an isometric game? Any wisdom to spare?
Oh, plenty. You got a few?
So
for starters, I think because we're locked in the camera, we have to sort of do the camera work for the player. So what that means is designing spaces that are like so things don't occlude the battlefield. Make sure forms are sort of wrapping around the play spaces. That's from an art perspective. That's like the number one hurdle. And the fact that we can't get parallax for free, so we have to do this manually. And we have a lot more tools now to do it, which is great. I'm so happy that we have that now. But basically adding depth, right? So we have to be very cognizant about like how we arrange the forms, so in order to not kill the playing space in terms of depth. If you have anything,
No, that's all you, man.
yeah.
All right, we did it, everybody. We're all done.
Yay.
See ya. Actually, no, it's time for you to spam us with questions.
Yep, we're going to put the chat in slow mode, and we're going to have you guys have opportunity to ask questions with Josh and Kaz. So please feel free to fire away, guys. But please keep in mind, we may not have time to answer all questions, so we'll do the best we can. So,
Oriental weapons. You want to take that one?
Any plan to add some Oriental weapons? Some better combat animations for monks? We don't currently have any plans to add any like Asiatic weapons. We may possibly for the Huana add a few special ones like that. They'd probably be variants of existing things rather than whole new classifications of weapons. What was the rest of that question?
New monk.
We're getting new monk animations. I mean, like on Pillars 1, we really had a very, very small animation team that had to animate a zillion things in the game. We had a lot more animators early on in the game. And the monk stuff, all the combat animations look a lot better. They've had a lot more time put into them. Also, Unity 5's animation stuff allows them they can just be a lot better.
So another one for me with what games artistically inspire me, what other games. Couple that I played were like again Banner Saga, but Ori in the Blind Forest, that was amazing. Just from a technical standpoint, the guys in Naughty Dog, obviously, with the Uncharted work is just phenomenal. I just came back from a GDC and saw all the behind-the-scenes stuff. So they do phenomenal work as well. What else am I playing right now? Battle Brothers.
Battle Brothers.
Pretty sick. Love that game.
I will say, and I've said this a lot of times, but the Battle Brothers team made some very smart decisions about their art style. And it's crazy how much detail they show on characters. I think it's really impressive. So they have a 2D game, and they have their little, big head and shoulders with their weapons. Nobody actually animates.
Right.
It's like a spear wall is just a guy going like that, and a shield is that, and then they just hop around. But they show so much detail. Like if a character loses a finger, it's gone on their little hand.
Oh, I didn't actually notice that.
Yeah, and then
That's crazy.
or not on their little. I'm sorry, I was thinking actually their eye. Like if they lose an eye, their eye is actually gone. They get a little patch. Their ear gets mangled. Their ear is actually mangled. So that stuff I think is really cool because it's like very smart use because they have one artist.
That's crazy.
Do you know 5 people are working on that
crazy.
game?
Wow.
5 people.
Good job.
Pretty awesome
wherever
game.
you are. Yeah, also the simplicity of the art helps with the communication too, I think, because like there are some subtle cues like when you have the spear and you go into like a different stance.
Yeah.
That needs to read. So yeah, very smart. What else we got?
With all the gameplay and new character animations of Tyranny, can we expect to see similar things in Pillars 2 or more like the first game? I don't know exactly what you're getting at there. I mean, the animations are improved a great deal in Pillars 2, both because we have many more animators on it, and also Unity 5 has better animation tools than Unity 4. So yes, the animations overall I think are more like Tyranny than Pillars 1, but Tyranny also had kind of a more super heroic vibe to a lot of the moves, so their Pillars is still a little more grounded, a little less like people flying around all over the place.
Right.
But then again, we still do have things like Dragon Leap and stuff like that. So, are the full character pen and ink character illustrations being used for anything? They're still used in conversations, and they're used in the scripted interaction sequences. Any chance to get different color fur for ranger animal companions?
It should be tintable. I'm not sure if we do we disallow that in the base game.
Well, there's no interface for it. It's possible. It is within the realm of possibility. I'm not promising anything, but it could happen. I have heard that requested a number of times, though. Will we run into archmages in Deadfire as we did in the White March?
Do we have a backer tier for that?
Oh, to make an archmage?
Make an archmage, I think.
There is that, but the answer is yes.
I gotta spoil that one. I guess.
Yeah, but we're not saying who, but yes, you The boys are back in town. Will you guys be releasing a strategy guide like you did for Pillars 1? I don't know. Probably. That's my guess.
I was really happy with the quality of that book, though.
That
came out pretty
it turned
tight.
out really nice. Will we see other kind of godlikes in Pillars 2, like Will Abaddon, Wall, etc.? Probably not. There's a huge... Those, man... Godlike are so time-consuming to make. I know Dimitri loves making them, but yeah, they're a huge time sink. The Watcher's powers felt really passive in Pillars 1. Will you be changing how they're portrayed at all in Pillars 2 to make them feel more like an active element of the world? Yes, to a certain extent. I think they will work a little bit better with the new way we're handling powers. Yes, probably. I think they will feel better and more integrated. As a priest of Aethys, can my character choose not to go completely against the reincarnated Aethys? Yes, you can. Remember that your goal is to find him, so it's not like stab him in the face. That's not your goal. So yes. I really like shapeshifting druids, but don't like the time limit on spirit shift. Any chance of a subclass for the druid that has spirit shift as a modal instead? There is a subclass that is focused specifically on spirit shifting. Without going into details on that, yes, for people that just like to be shifted all over the place and do all sorts of crazy stuff, there is a subclass that is focused on that. Will Pillars 2 take some benefits from Unity 5.6 coming out at the end of this month? Yes. What are the things specifically? One is
Well, we're getting
nav mesh.
Yeah, nav mesh. Also, this is not 5.6, but Text Mesh Pro, getting all that stuff is huge for. It's a plugin to drawing text, and it's a very text-heavy game, obviously. So that was one of the limitations we had in the base game UI was we couldn't insert like art pieces in between lines of text. That was a huge. So when you look at like the item description window, it was really hard to format that window. Bestiary, we couldn't have like text like wrapping around.
Even the combat log.
Even the comment, yeah.
Because it's super text heavy, but we can use, like, there are places where we use icons like the deflection icon, the fire eye or the burn icon, things like that.
There's also on 5.5 a lot of VFX functionality has been added. So John Lewis, it's going to be John Lewis Unchained.
John Lewis
get
Unchained
ready.
is already pretty crazy.
It-
So, yeah,
gonna be great.
Yeah, the nav mesh stuff, that's a little technical, but we didn't really have the ability to dynamically add or remove nav mesh in Pillars 1, meaning our map sort of layouts were a little more static that way. So with dynamic nav mesh, that opens up a lot of possibilities for it. I don't know how crazy we're going to go with it, but it does mean that we can do certain things we didn't, they weren't possible before, so that's cool. What are you doing to reduce lore dumpiness nature of characters, and is the amount of prose being reduced? BG2 didn't need any to develop good characters. Yes, you can develop good or bad characters with or without prose.
Yeah, it's not inherently tied.
Yeah, it's not inherently like if you have prose, it's better or worse. Yes, like the overall amount of prose is going down a little bit. Also, the lore dumpiness. Well, one is that I encourage the designers not to make lore dumpy characters. I try to keep them focused on things that are of direct importance to the character and their personal conflict. If something that the character says could just as well be in a book, then it shouldn't be spoken by a character. There's no point. And the other thing that we're doing is we're borrowing Tyranny's lore highlighting system. So if there's something that can be found in a number of different places, instead of having like 6 or 7 different characters talk about it, one character maybe talks about it, and other characters, it'll just be a lore highlight. So you can just say like, oh, okay, that's what that is. Like you don't need to define what the Deadfire or Luminous Audra is every single time you encounter it in a dialogue. Are you making a map of Aora, like a known map or something? I'm really curious to see what Aora looks like. Internally, there are some maps that show that stuff. However, maps and spaces and distances are tricky, and I probably wouldn't share that unless it were required, because sometimes I'm stupid. I'm not a meteorologist, and sometimes things get weird and stupid. Although I will say that for the Deadfire, I did consult a meteorologist and a climatologist to help like sort of lay things out in a way that didn't seem completely ridiculous. But yeah, like I can probably do a little sketch to show you the relative positions of things, but as far as like an actual real map with distances, unless it's really important, maybe something like that would come out with the guidebook too, or maybe something like that would happen with the tabletop game that I'm working on.
I am pretty stoked about the open world nature of the world map, though. Something I really liked from BG1 was the whole sprawling wilderness, or Fallout 1, obviously, but I'm hoping we can capture some of that sort of like really open exploring fields using this, because we do have limited resources for actual backgrounds, but this allows us to kind of paint a bigger, way bigger world, in a more smart way, I guess. So pretty stoked for that.
How are the animated environment elements like rowboats, trees in the trailer rendered in Deadfire? Standard, real-time 3D, sprites, rigged flat meshes?
Yeah, so it's all rigged 3D. Sometimes there are rigs, and sometimes they're purely vertex animation. But they integrate right into our 2D renders, which have depth information, so they all sort correctly and all that stuff. So 3D meshes.
Yeah. Are you done with class combo names, or are you are struggling? We have class combo names for everything except for like maybe 2 or 3, but they're not set in stone. We're still going to be modifying them as time goes on.
Do you have a particular PoE character who's your favorite to draw? I'm assuming that's portraits. Idera was super fun. All the companions were super fun. Josh, you gave me some pretty cool, like a design sheet for Pallegina. That was really cool. That was fun. Out of the player portrait bunch, I guess internally we call him Bronan, but like the Conan inspired one, that was pretty fun. Yeah, those come to mind.
Cool. Will random combat encounters be finite in Pillars 2? I'd like that for the sake of the game's economy. Same applies to crafting materials found throughout Deadfire, collecting plants and fishing, for example. Some encounters will be finite, like they'll only fire once ever. Some will repeat, but that will depend on the total number of encounters that we have. So some will definitely be exhausted. You just can't keep getting them over and over again, and then some will recur. Will you be able to hear party banter not matter where you're looking on the map? Pillars 1, if you were focused on the other side of the map, you couldn't hear the party banter. We have integrated WYs audio, so I think we can control the fall off of that a little bit better, or it's a little easier to. So we can have them be, at a minimum threshold. Like, I think that the audio team would still like things to be positional and still like it to fall off if they're not on screen, but we can probably have them, at a certain minimum, like banters are always going to be heard. They'll just be quieter. Will we be able to sympathize with Aethys and Deadfire? I don't know. Will you? That's up to you. And does he have a faction associated with him? Time will tell.
The Aethys team. Team Aethys.
Will we learn more about godlikes and their relationship to the gods? Yep. Pillars 1 lacked NPC portraits for some of the important characters. How will it be in Pillars 2? We already talked about this.
You're getting them. Yep.
You're getting them. So all those little watercolory style pen and ink guys, we're trying to make those for like as many quest NPCs as we possibly can. And Matt Hansen can make, how many has he made so far? 100?
I think it's up there, yeah.
Yeah, it's like probably close to 100. So maybe not every single character you talk to, but almost every single character you talk to. Question, character customization. Since we are getting a huge jump in the graphics area, what can we expect customizing the Watcher face?
Head types, I don't think we dived into that yet.
No, head types, we're going to have more head types. Probably not dramatically more head types, and the head types will be better. And I think we're having more hair and facial hairstyles, but we're not yet moving to like morphing, like, we're making a Saints Row character or something like that.
Our paper doll inventory is bigger than Pillars 1. Actually, it's kind of goofy after playing Pillars 2 for so long, and then when I go back, it's like this tiny crown thing. Anyway, yeah, it is bigger, but we're not definitely like a first-person, third-person game, so we gotta like be cognizant about where we spend our resources.
Yeah, that's a lot of. That's a lot of resources to make customization at that level. Will there be damage or repair system causing downtime for the ship? So part of the crew design is actually looking at the ship design to see what I would like is for there to be something more comprehensive for all this stuff. I don't like it when there are little systems kind of hanging off that don't really feel like they're integrated with other things. And that was a problem with the Stronghold. So as Bobby's designing a lot of the ship mechanics, I'm going to be talking with him about how to incorporate them into existing things and to cause like neat gameplay sort of cycling effects. So we'll see about that. Because ships are the primary means of navigating the Deadfire, it's doubtful that you would ever be like, this ship is completely unusable, but we can certainly have there be a strong, compelling reason for there to be downtime. But, like I said, the system is still being designed. Will godlikes have more than 3 or 4 heads to choose from and have hair options or head adornment items instead of helmets? They'll probably have a similar number of heads. No, you don't get anything for the head slot. That's what you don't get. If you're godlike, you don't get anything for the head slot. Too bad.
Speaking of helms, do we...
That's the price of being insanely weird.
Are we allowing the... If you equip a helmet, I'm not godlike, are we opening the option to turn the helm off?
Yes, you're going to be able to turn off cloaks and helmets.
Okay.
So if you wear a helmet and you're wearing it, you just want to see your beautiful face, you can just say like, no, I don't want to see that.
Yeah, I think that would be a good feature because like when you look at the battlefield sometimes, like the head is such a dominant graphical, piece of like visual information. So I think I'll be turning it on in my playthrough.
Is Aethys evil now? I don't know. Is he? How are relationships going to be accessed? Are they governed by positive affinity? Well, they're governed by the individual quest. So depending on the individual character and their quest, it can start based on a number of factors in a number of different places. Sometimes there'll be a triggering event that launches it. Sometimes it'll be like when you get back to your ship or something like that, then they'll talk to you about it. But there are a number of factors that go into it. So the short answer is it varies from character to character, as is appropriate for the character. Will there be more interesting interactions with stealth in relation to quests? I would love to see certain missions be resolved in a different manner using stealth. Yes. I am glad that I believe that we improved stealth a little bit in Pillars 1 versus the Infinity Engine games. However, we didn't do a great job of making content make use of it. So we're trying to lean more heavily on that. Did we actually show any of the stealth interface?
I don't think so.
Oh, yeah. Guess what? Here's some spoilers, or not spoilers, but we just didn't talk about this during the campaign. So our stealth mechanics now, creatures have a vision cone. So if you're not in their vision cone, it's much harder for them to detect you. But if you're moving around, they can hear you. They have a hearing radius and a vision cone. We've done a lot of work on making those readable and not destroying the interface. But we have people patrol, and the way that they face is actually important. So when someone is facing away from you, if you sneak behind them, it's much easier to get around them than if you're just walking right in front of them. So paying attention to timing, the patrol routes of characters are actually important. There's one quest I can think of right now that's a very cool quest that has a number of ways to do it. One of which, so Lindsay is very happy about this, by the way, that in the Valiant, there's a Valiant home that's there's a Valiant building that's very wealthy and expensive, and it has a toilet in it.
Oh, yeah.
And you can sneak in through the toilet, which is pretty nasty, but that allows you to stealth around. And yes, like you can actually sneak in and steal a thing, and it's very cool. But there are other quests that are designed like that as well. So the stealth system, I think, feels better. It feels like an evolution over Pillars. Facing, all that stuff is still important, so that's cool.
And I work with area designers when they come up with area blockouts, and just from talking to the designers too, we're way more aware about the sort of the vision range of a character. So I'm getting a lot of overhearing conversations about being sensitive to that. It's like if you go over this ledge, you're gonna get to see this encounter coming up, so you can make decisions based off that. Compared to base game, there's just a lot more consideration going into it. So,
will there be a mini-map this time around? What do you think of Tyranny's dynamic mini-map, auto-switching between map and combat log? I think that was a cool feature. We haven't talked about incorporating it into Pillars. Our programming schedule, honestly, is pretty full right now, especially since now we have a crew system to do. So it's a cool feature. I don't know if we'll get it in, though. But I do think it's a very good feature. What about an in-universe full map? Then any inaccuracies in distance and such could be explained away by them not having accurate measurements to draw a completely accurate map. That's a good point. You could have, some explorer who has mapped it out. We could do something like that. Imo's art is A+, that's true. Question, there were a lot of bald hairstyles in Pillars 1. Are there going to be more choices in Pillars 2? Do you mean bald or bad?
Bald.
Or both? Or bald? Yeah, bald. Were there that many bald? I guess there were a few bald. Do you have something against bald village? People? Says the 41-year-old who's going yeah, there are going to be. I think there are going to be more choices. I think that Dimitri is making more hair choices.
And Lindsay is barking up Dimitri's,
Yeah.
giving him a hard time all day.
Will we be able to auto evade spotted traps? Currently, we don't do the auto evaded spotted traps. However, we are leaning more towards doing, and we're starting to incorporate physical traps, more like Tyranny's traps, where traps are pretty much always something that you can see if you're paying close attention. So instead of just being like, it's a spot on the floor that destroys you, it's an actual thing that you can see. Of course, if you spot it with perception, then it'll highlight and stop and go like, yo, there's a trap right there. And obviously you can't interact with the trap unless you have literally detected it using perception, but you can navigate around it manually, like, oh, I see a thing on the ground even though I haven't technically detected it yet.
That's a tricky one to handle, because if we just blanket say, players avoid these detected trap areas, then potentially you can block an entire hallway off.
Yeah, it's so let me talk about way back when in Land Before Time at Black Isle, I worked on a game called Black Hound, and we had AIs that avoided all sorts of hazards, including traps, and it was kind of cool but kind of frustrating because sometimes if I have like a super burly fighter, I don't care about running through this trap.
Right.
Like I know, like I can take it. So it gets frustrating when if you're going to second guess what the player wants, you better be really confident about what they want to do.
Or offer a force move.
Yeah, or a force move or something like that. So it's a tricky thing.
Right.
Currently, it's just like we make it obvious once it's spotted and you can navigate around it. And even if you haven't technically spotted it, you can still see it in the environment to walk around it. So it's not just like, well, I know there's something here. Will companions from Pillars 1 show up as NPCs? Durance is the first to come to mind, seeing as he helped kill Aethys. It is possible, depending on the character and their ending, that they could show up as an NPC, not a companion, in Deadfire. Kaz, question.
Is there a piece of concept art that came in way cooler than you anticipated? That's a good question. What came in way cooler? Something with an architecture stuff was really cool, very detailed. What else? The ship stuff is really exciting for me. Just the whole ship concept, to be honest. But what else is there? A lot of the creatures. Some Nagas are.
Yeah, the Nagas are really cool.
I'm really a fan of those.
And with all the dynamic elements on them,
Yeah.
in execution, they look super cool.
Yeah, the hooded guys, like the kind of rogue-looking guys, are when they move around, the hoods kind of simulate a little bit. It's pretty rad.
Paladin, Order, and Priest, if they start going through all the Order and God's Dogma, is there a chance to add a heretic quest line or that sort of thing? That would be a ton of work, to be honest, because if you think about all the Paladin orders and all the Priest orders, that's like 10, like 9 or 10 different things right there. So adding a quest line for each of those guys would be a huge amount of work. Will Aethys be hostile to you if you are a god like a Magran or a priest of another god? Who can say? Make one and find out.
Did anyone play BG? Did anyone play the
BG Siege of Dragonspear?
Dragonspear.
The random encounters in that were really cool. They were really just events and a mini quest on 1 to 3 small maps. Enjoyed them much more than the fodder ambushes in BG one.
I'll have to check that out.
Yes, I haven't played all of it, but I've played a little bit of it. And that's really when we talk about our encounters, they're not they're random in the sense that they're not always predictable when they'll pop up, but they're not randomly generated or trash mobs. They're always specific encounters and special content. That's why we don't generally call them random encounters. We call them special encounters that are randomly triggered based on certain things, where you are and all that sort of stuff. Bearded dwarf women, yes. No, dwarves, female dwarves in Aora aren't bearded. Can you scroll up a little bit there? Will there be any more godlike characters we will meet? Some people probably missed this from the last stream, but one of the companions we didn't talk about during the stream, or during the campaign really, is Tekehu. He's in a few of the illustrations, like the one that Lindsay made of all the companions for the relationship update. Tekehu he's Hwana, he's Anamawa, but he is also godlike. So yes.
Cass, how often do you have to iterate with writers to refine the look of character? Do they tend to write specific descriptions or more open-ended ones? Depends on the character, I feel. It's kind of organic with us because it's such a small team. So sometimes writers will be very specific about something because they had an idea or an inspiration, and we'll try to respect that and design around it. Other times, if it's vague, we'll go crazy, and sometimes we come up with the idea and they follow up with that. So it's very organic, back and forth.
Can you give any info about the last companion, which I understand is an ocean godlike Amawa chanter? So, as I was just saying, Takehu, he is a godlike. He is sort of an ocean godlike, and he has an Amawa, and he actually is either a druid or a chanter, or both, if you would really like to advance him that way. But his cool thing, that I won't go into super detail in because learning about it is half the enjoyment, is that he is a member of something called the Water Shapers Guild. That is a part of Juana's society, and it is very, very cool. How long after Pillars 1 is Pillars 2? Months, years? Right now we're saying 3 to 5 years. It's probably about 5 years. We're not being specific for various reasons that why pin it down unless it's absolutely necessary, but probably about 5 years. Like Commandos.
What was I referring to?
Yeah, what is that? What is the like
I
Commandos
missed that
referring to?
context.
Oh, is that maybe stealth? I think maybe stealth.
Yeah, I love stealth in Commandos. I mean, granted, that game was built
around stealth.
Yeah.
So, sort of like Commandos. But, you know what my favorite part of Commandos is?
What's that?
Well, there are two. There's one is I think it's the Russian lady using lipstick, and then all the Nazi guys like flip out and all like congregate around her as a distraction. I think her name
Which
was
one
like
was
Katya.
this? Was this 3?
I think it was like 2 or 3.
Oh, okay, I don't remember.
So
that.
yeah, there was like a spy, like sexy lady who would use lipstick, and then like every single dude would go like, "Oh my god!" But then the other thing was it Dutch? Was Dutch the name of the like main dude, like the main beefcake like Rambo guy?
Yeah.
I believe so.
So you like throwing you'd like drop a thing of cigarettes, and then he would like cover himself in dirt, and then like a guy would be like, "Oh, cool, cigarettes," and then he'd come over, and then your dude would just like come out. It was like Rambo 2, where he'd come out of the ground and then just like
like knifing people in that game was so satisfying. What was I gonna say? That would be a cool people to chat with, like the original development team. Sometimes, like, I often actually go back to Commandos maps.
There's a lot of cool art in those maps.
Dude, they're insane. They also rendered those pre-rendered backgrounds from 4 different angles, so they had to, like, I don't know how they designed those layouts, because because they can rotate around, they have more leeway, I guess, and not having to worry about occlusion as much. But just gorgeous art in those games.
So pickpockets, yeah, you can pickpocket people in this game. So when you go to pickpocket someone, obviously if you do it right in front of their face, you fail.
Really?
Yeah, like it's, I think, I don't know if it's a guaranteed fail, but it's pretty much impossible. So you have to be in stealth mode that's like the modal state. Like when you are in stealth mode, your standard interaction with people is picking their pocket. If you want to talk to someone, don't sneak up on them. When you interact with them, you get a pop-up interface, and it'll show you items that, it's not random. It's basically, you can take, these items you can take without being detected. These items you can take, but you're going to be detected. And sometimes you just like, I don't care. Like, I'm going to take this, and they're going to go aggro on me, and I don't give a crap. And then there's stuff that they're like, this is on them, but you can't. You can't pull it. You can't take it, no matter what. And that's how pickpocketing works. And also, as previously suggested, you can put explosives. You can put little alchemical bombs on people and blow them up, which is very, very funny.
Can I reverse pickpocket like 100 full plate males on a person and just root them?
No, you cannot do that.
Adam, if you're watching, Adam, make it happen.
Okay, can you scroll down a little bit more? Scroll down. Scroll down. Would you mind explaining the difference between Old Valia and Valiant Republics? I don't remember any unique dialogue in Pillars 1 with any Valiants. I hope there will be some more unique reactions and dialogue. Old Valia is like the equivalent of Edir. So Old Valia to the Valiant Republics is like Edir was for the Deerwood. So they're an old empire that colonized the Valiant Republics, but the empire fell apart. Old Valia used to be called Grand Valia. They fell into civil war and dissolved, and now it's just a bunch of bickering, like minor, fractious, crazy people. So most of their power and glory is in the past, but they still have this very long tradition that goes back thousands of years. Yeah, and that's kind of the general vibe of the Principe. And so of the Old Valians, the Principe in Pillars are Old Valian aristocrats who have, over generations been sort of forced farther and farther east until they wound up in the Deadfire and are reduced to being pirates, which is not really what they would like to be doing, but that's kind of the situation they're stuck in. And there we go.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Josh and Cass, for taking time out of your busy day to stream for an hour for
problem.
people in the chat. Thank you guys for the amazing questions. We are going to have more Q&A streams with Josh and other devs on the team. So be sure to follow the Twitch channel to get notifications when we're streaming live. Also on our Twitter accounts, at Obsidian and at World of Eternity. And then if you have not yet had a chance to pledge for Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire, you can scroll down on the Twitch profile and you can pledge on the Slacker backer and get some cool stuff. So thank you guys very much for hanging out with us, and we shall see you next time.
Thanks,
ya.
guys.